Well, hello people, how you guys doing? I hope you're doing well. Now today I wanted to talk about autism self-diagnosis. Why people are self-diagnosing themselves as autistic. But if you're brand new to the channel, I do talk about autism on a weekly basis, so if you're brand new and you like what you see, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell for me so you don't miss out on any videos. Now to kick off this video, I think it's only right and fair of me to talk about my own diagnosis journey. So I was diagnosed with PDD NOS, now under the umbrella of autism spectrum disorders, or autism spectrum conditions, sorry, and this was in 1996-1997. So I was between the ages of 4 and 5 throughout the entirety of my school career, through my college career. Like, I've always had help, all of these services, all of this support, because I was able to get a diagnosis, and I was lucky enough and privileged enough to get a diagnosis. Because since I've started making autism videos and getting involved with the community and talking to people and, you know, opening myself up to different people's experiences, I've really come to understand that getting a diagnosis is not as easy as I have had it. So what are some of the reasons why someone may diagnose themselves as autistic? Now, someone may become curious as to why they do a certain thing the way they do it, or they feel a certain way that others don't, or they just feel like they are lost in society, or they just feel like an alien in a group of people. They'll go looking for answers, and you know, they may come across a diagnosis of autism and related very heavily to that diagnosis. You know, they may take online quizzes, or even you can go online, Google DSM-5 or ICD-10, which are the two diagnostic manuals, and you can actually go through and find all of the criteria to be diagnosed as autistic. Maybe when you're reading the criteria, you find points of it where you really agree with it, and then you start to think, oh, maybe I am autistic. Unless you go through the process of getting a diagnosis of autism and then finding out that it's actually not autism, it's something else, you know, then you don't know. But one of the factors that might hinder someone getting a diagnosis, and one of the reasons why people may self-diagnose, is the price of diagnosis. Now, in the UK, I'm lucky enough, and other people who live in the UK as well, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, we are privileged to have the NHS. You know, we are privileged to say that we can go into a hospital and be treated without the thought, the fear of having to pay for it. And when it comes to people self-diagnosing themselves as autistic, they may want to be diagnosed as autistic, but price and paying for a diagnosis is just not something that they can do, which in 2019 sickens me beyond belief. But also in some countries, if you're actually diagnosed as having autism, then you are seen as inadequate or seen as not human. Like, for example, in certain countries in Africa, you know, some people will go to the length of praying and stuff like that, thinking that autism is a demonic being. Like, I'm being deadly serious. And it's not just in Africa either. Like, in France, to my understanding, they have a very bad cultural viewpoint when it comes to mental health. To my own understanding, it's just not something that, you know, is seen favorably. Another reason why people may self-diagnose themselves as autistic is parents. Now, there's a few self-diagnosed individuals who can't get a diagnosis because of their age, and basically, you know, they have to have parents' permission in order to get a diagnosis. Some parents are accepting of this and they will help them through the process. But unfortunately, you do have some people out there, some parents, that don't like the idea of their kid having a diagnosis of autism. That can hinder someone getting a diagnosis, and why some people may choose to self-diagnose up until the point that they can actually get a full diagnosis. So people may be forced to wait up until an age where they can get a diagnosis, say 18, but then, say if we're taking the UK statistics for waiting times for autism diagnosis, you could be waiting 18 to 24 months. So you could get a diagnosis in your 20s, but you've already had years of struggling, you know, not having the support there. It's a sad thing to think about, but it does happen. It genuinely does happen. I've talked to people about it, you know, in these videos, like in the comments and stuff. Like, it does happen, and it is heartbreaking. Honestly, it's so heartbreaking for me to see. Another reason why people may self-diagnose is gatekeeping from professionals. Now, professionals like GPs and stuff, I fully appreciate. They have an incredibly difficult job, you know, doing the best for the patient that they have in front of them and the hundreds of other patients that they have in their practices, or even if they're a hospital doctor or something like that. You know, there's a lot of responsibility when it comes to the medical profession. I do fully appreciate that. But ultimately, medical professionals and GPs hold all of the power. They hold all of the keys to all of the doors in order for someone to get a diagnosis of autism. So sometimes if you're talking to a medical professional about your issues, they may not land on autism straight away. You know, they might go through several diagnoses and then reach autism after many trials and tribulations, maybe because they don't have much experience of autism. I feel this is very true when it comes to diagnosing girls on the spectrum. And some doctors are ignorant. They may look at a person who could be considered on the spectrum who is female, and just because they are able to speak fluently, you know, be very sociable and stuff, that doesn't make them autistic. It's still a thing that happens, and it is really sad to see. It is incredibly sad to see. My general thoughts on self-diagnosing autism: I can understand why people self-diagnose themselves as autistic, especially if they can't pay for it, you know, and just all of these other factors I've talked about in this video. I can fully understand and appreciate why people may go the route of self-diagnosis. But I do understand some people's arguments against self-diagnosis. For example, it trivializes the diagnosis process. You know, some people might say it's attention seeking, or the person who says they're autistic, that's self-diagnosed, hasn't done enough research. And some people might think they've just gone to BuzzFeed or something and taken a test and landed on autism, you know? But really what I want to say in regards to all of this is it right of us to judge other people's experiences? Just because I've got a bit of paper that says I'm autistic, does that make me any better than someone who can't afford to get a diagnosis, or, you know, is in a position where they just can't get a diagnosis on paper? Because I've got a diagnosis of autism and I've been privileged enough to have the provisions put in place for me, it doesn't mean that I am better than someone who doesn't have a diagnosis and says they are self-diagnosed. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to self-diagnosing. Like, I trust that they have done enough research, they, you know, they've just done everything that they can to consume enough content and stuff about it to be able to come to an informed decision. What is your thought on self-diagnosis of autism? Just self-diagnosis in general, like, what is your opinion on it? I would love to know down below in those comments. But for now, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button so I know. Subscribe to the channel if you are brand new and you want more. Stay you, stay indie, have a great day guys, and I'll see you all next time.